Commissioner for Utilities in our list. Before we proceed, Honourable Commissioner, I would like us to observe a minute silence for one of our colleagues that departed just about 8 days ago. May the soul of Ezenwanne and the faithful departed. Honourable Commissioner, it's my pleasure to formally welcome you on behalf of the CPS and DCPS and members of the Governor's Media team. Incidentally, you are the second commissioner that is coming. So this seat, which for all intents and purposes is a very cool seat. And so what we do is not to look for loopholes or where to cast blame, but to work as a team with the commissioners and all who have responsibility given to them by the governor of the state, just like he gave us. To be able to put those things the ministries are doing into public space. And so we're here to interface with you, to give us insights into what your ministry is doing, what you still intend to do, what has been achieved, and even places where our mind is going, because there are other things we see that your ministry has done. But there may be things that your ministry is doing or has done that we as Governor's Media team are not even aware of. We know that by the time we finish this session with you, our knowledge of what your ministry has been doing and has been achieving under Obiano will be much more enhanced. That, in a nutshell, is the introduction I have to make. At this point in time, permit me, sir, to hand over to our leader.
We are super happy to have you here today. What we are doing here today has the support and the blessing of His Excellency. He takes it very seriously. He monitored the maiden edition of it, and he looks forward to a better performance from you. So I just want you to be very comfortable. This is not Igbo style, arrangement.
Gentlemen, I am always very happy and passionate to talk about what the Governor of Anambra State, Chief Dr. William Obiano, is doing through the Ministry of Public Utility. It's something that I can talk during the day, in the night, anytime. If you wake me up, I can happily talk about it, because the governor is doing very well. The governor of Anambra State has, through the Ministry of Public Utilities, embarked on so many transformational projects. I say transformational because most of these projects are very life-changing, very impactful. They have highly impacted on the lives of the Anambra. Under the Ministry of Public Utility that I head, we have the electrical department, the water, then the fire service, although the governor is working on positioning the fire service for more efficiency, so he's thinking about making fire service an agency. But for now, fire service is still under the Ministry of Public Utility. Of course, gentlemen, under power sector, the governor of Anambra State has implemented about 1,800 kilometers of streetlight infrastructure around the state. And this, of course, is a very, very transformational project. It has impacted on a whole lot of things in the state, impacted on the way our people do business, impacted on the security of the state, impacted on nightlife. People now do business 24 hours. Businesses run shifts. People are making more money because of this single infrastructure. Whenever you look at the project, you see the thought process, you see the idea behind it. You know, legacy. Legacy is the guiding principle. That's what he always tells us. So this streetlight project is a project so many has chains of impact on what we are doing. You know that our governor has given out almost 400 pieces of transformer substation to different communities. And he has also not only given out another 310 units, but he installed them. Understand what I'm saying? He gave out some 400 for the community to install, but he personally gave 310 and installed for the communities. It's not the business of government. I don't think there's any state that is doing it. I don't know. If you know, you tell me, but I don't think so. It's the government, it's the business of the discos to do that, the likes of EDC. But because the governor cares so much about the well-being of Anambra, they want to improve our supply. We continue to give out these things. Then when you come to transmission, this is where sometimes I get so emotional. I don't know whether you guys know that there are some communities that have never seen electricity in the state. And our governor has made it possible for them to do so. The transmission line from Otuache Junction to Eziagolotu through Enuguotu to Mpunando was commissioned. And these communities have never seen electricity all their life. You could see the joy. You know, these are the things you see, you get emotional. And that's why I am always very touched about the choice, the way the governor chooses these projects. Don't forget that the governor extended a 3 kV line from Oji River in Enugu State to Orumba North and South that benefited about 31 communities, including some communities in other states. Extended another 3 kV line from Agoka substation to Anambra North, Senatorial District. Created what we call the Nnewi Feeder 2 from Awada injection substation to Nnewi that benefited more than 21 communities that is within that Nnewi feeder. These are very high impactful projects because you know, power drives most things. That welder, that barber, that makes a lot of difference in their life. Let me tell you about the big one. Because most of the time, when you are doing this extension of that 3 kV line, you are doing it within the available power within the state. But the governor signed a massive MOU with the Transmission Company of Nigeria to do a massive transmission and generating infrastructure in Anambra State. The details of the project is that there's going to be 2x60 MVA transmission substation in Onitsha, Nnewi, Ifitedunu, Umuchu, Aguleri. And then there's going to be another very big one in Oka here, 2x150 MVA transmission substation. The whole idea is when you finish building these substations, you connect them with 132 kV line and you build a power ring around the state. So you make available good power in the state. This power, there's no kind of industry to not drive. Don't forget that despite the fact that Anambra is a heaven for real estate and industries because of security, but there is still a gap in terms of power, and that's what the government is trying to fill. So when you have security and adequate power, you can imagine what is going to happen. So the project is ongoing and it's doing very well. Now, don't forget that the government of Governor William Obiano also installed state-of-the-art intelligent traffic lights in about 26 junctions in Anambra State, helping to control the traffic. Now, under water provision, of course, you know that a whole lot of states now put a lot of emphasis in the provision of water. Now that you know that we have COVID in town, and the known solution, at least for now, unless if there is anything that has just happened before I enter this room, for now the solution is washing your hands with soap and water and observing very good personal hygiene. So water is very, water is always very important, of course, but it's even more important now. So the government of the Obiano knows that much, and the governor is doing everything to close the gap we have in water.
Thank you, the Honourable Commissioner. You've given us a lot to chew on already, but we would like to move into specifics now. I don't know whether you could give us a clear idea what informs, what the cardinal points, areas of focus of your ministry, should be, or what they are. So we would like to know the specific areas you are concentrating efforts and why. That is one. Then the other question I would like to ask is, I am aware that not quite long ago, even in the middle of this COVID-19 scare, some key water projects were commissioned, one in Aguleri, the other one in Obizi. I would also like you to explain to us what actually happened, the volume of investment, that went into the two water schemes, and then the expectations, the existing challenges that the schemes have come to take care of.
Now, under the power sector electricity department, I've tried to enumerate the things we do. But before I tell you about Obizi and the Otuacha water scheme, I know that's what I'm talking about, that was commissioned in March, there is one thing that I'm very excited to tell you guys to take to town. His Excellency, the Governor of Anambra State, has finally provided a master key to unlock the problem of project sustainability, especially as it comes to water facilities. I started by saying that the government, cumulatively, under different ministries, has done over 1,000 water facilities. But if you start to look at all of them one by one, you notice that quite a good percentage of them are not working as we speak. Because of what? What I'm about to tell you. The Governor of Anambra State has approved the concessioning of Onitsha water scheme through PPP. And to me, that's the way to go. When I told the minister told me that they're going to send some people to understudy how we structure that PPP. Because a whole lot of states, set of being local government, federal government, state government, are going through this problem of sustainability. The ESCO of Anambra State has approved it. The little finishing touches we are doing is to work out the right rate to charge people. The ANSIPA has gone through a rigorous assessment of it. It has to do with rehabilitation of the existing Onitsha water infrastructure and the expansion. And I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, within 6 months after the signing of this MOU, all this 1, 2, 3, 4 you see in Onitsha, you can open your tap at any level of those structures. Why did I call it a master key? We are going to take this key and start to apply it. We are going to apply it in Obizi water scheme. We are going to apply it in Otuacha water scheme. We are going to apply it in about 33 water scheme, big water scheme we have in the state. Most of them, everything is fine. It's just maybe somebody need to put diesel and nobody to do that. You give somebody, he will do it for 3 months, and then some of them, they will steal it and vandalize. My brothers, If we put this key there, PPP is the way to go. That's why I'm so excited to talk about it. And I can tell you, the people that are going to handle the underwater scheme, they are very professionals when it comes to water-related matter. The PCI South Africa. The same people are the people that did the OBZ and the total water scheme that we talked about. OBZ water scheme is another historic transformational project. Why did I say so? There is an old man in Agwata, because OBZ covered about 18 communities in Agwata. The guy told me that the last time he saw running water, pipe-borne water in his community was during the Civil War. That he didn't know that he would still be alive to see pipe-borne water running in his community. I tell you, most of the time we go emotional about these things. As I'm talking to you now, they are pumping water 3 times a week in OBZ and Lotu water, and water is running in all the communities. The contract is drafted by my ministry. This particular OBZ and Lotu one, the Attorney General has approved. It's awaiting governor's further action. Once it's done, the South Africans, they have even started what they call the pipeline mapping. Because of course you know that if they come in a particular community, the pipeline routes are limited. So they want to extend it to all the major routes in all these affected communities. Their intention is, once this is signed, within few weeks, they will start to connect water to all the houses that are along the pipeline channel. Then after some time, when they finish their pipeline routing, they will then extend the other pipeline, and before you know it, if Emeka wants water to run in his house, just he apply, within few days, a connecting fee and whatever, you have water running. If somebody comes in from Lagos or Abuja for Christmas and want water to run in his community, within 1 week, he will get it done. That's where we are going. And that's why I call it the master key. We are using Onitsha, Obizo Tuacha. Once we finalize it and get it working, we then extend it to the 33 other big water scheme we are doing. Don't forget, we are doing pilot scheme with the World Bank in Oka here, in Udoka Estate, specifically.
When this administration came on board, that was in 2015, that it paid about 2 billion to settle arrears of salaries to workers of the State Water Corporation. We would like to know what is the situation today. Are they still being owed any entitlements? Are they actually working? If they're working, what is their input? That is, how are they meaningfully engaged? And given the scenario you've just painted on the PPP that will soon come into operation, does that eliminate the role of the Water Corporation? So, where do we stand today in terms of the Water Corporation and the water policy of this administration?
That's nothing like Water Corporation anymore. It's an illegal entity, and ISCO has pronounced that. They've been served. What you said about the payment, they got that money through, they garnished the state account and got that money in a very terrible way. But I am not always comfortable to talk deep into certain things that have to do with law. But I know that the Attorney General has written them. The entity that is actually playing the similar role that the Water Corporation used to play is the urban water, Anambra State urban water. So we don't have the Water Corporation in existence again in Anambra State.
The Honourable Commissioner, we're glad for your enlightenment on the activities of your ministry. But I want to ask, given the challenge of time in the life of this administration, how hopeful are we that the benefits of this your efforts, the effort of government, will reach the Anambra before the term of Obiano expires?
when I was talking about this PPP arrangement, which I call the master key, you could see the excitement in me. My brother, once we apply this, you don't need to worry about the government is going out and stuff. Of course, they are signing a long-term listing. The government's, supervisory role in terms of price control, in terms of regulating them to make sure that they standardize what they are doing is still there, but it's going to run like a business. It's not going to be business as usual. It's not going to be treated like this government thing. And that's the problem. That's the major problem that we are having with most of the government facilities because of the attitude of people towards government thing. And that's why the government of Chief Obiano set up Facility Management Committee. The major thing they are doing is to bring communities into the affairs of management of these facilities, to make them buy into this. Because it is simply impossible for you to be in Oka and supervise all the facilities that are scattered in all the communities. For instance, I'm using Oko, for instance. You have a water installation in Oko, and it's benefiting you that is staying there. Nobody's going to be from Oka and go to Oko and take water. So it's to your best interest to protect this facility. So when we start to talk to the community, what are you guys doing? And they continue to say that sometimes they see this, they don't know how to communicate. This team continues to share numbers and stuff. Now the compliance is increasing every day. We are managing most of this information. It's working in the supervision of street light. It's working in a whole lot of things. What they did, immediately we are set up, they wrote to all the churches. Okay? That we are announcements in all the churches about the establishment of this, and they shared their numbers, okay? And they wrote to all the traditional rulers, to all the PGs, and everybody, they all have the numbers of this committee. So if you see somebody vandalizing government facility, it's not issue of you don't know how to go about it. So we try to use this committee to bring government close to the people, and it's working very well.
Commissioner, in the life of this administration, as a second term swung into action, there was what you might call a seismic shift you put it under par. But if there is anything that has impacted the life of the average Anambra, is the fact that under normal circumstances, by 6 p.m., the state is shut down. We are essentially a commercial state. But somehow, 3 years ago or thereabouts, those are the onset of the second administration, end of first and the second administration. Suddenly, it became common for the governor to move across the state and are switching on lights here and there. Initially, we never thought it's going to be possible. But now we've taken it for granted. Incidentally, we were coming from Onitsha yesterday and we drove seamlessly. People were doing businesses and all that. Now that it's become common, I hear you say sustainability. First, on one leg, how has that initiative been sustained up to this moment? And looking at the challenge of powering electricity with diesel, and the fact that some there's this move towards solar powered power and all that. Do we see the lifespan of this noble initiative beyond the tenure of this administration? Because people have come to begin to enjoy it. It is actually been associated with Obiano, and if there's one legacy worth remembering, it is Operation Light of Anambra. So we want you to give us an insight into how this initiative is sustained.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emeka. This is a very lovely question. First of all, like you rightly said, this streetlight project is massive. Like I said, over 1,800 kilometers, about 31,500 lamps in the 208 networks that we have. My brother, this is massive. I must tell you, anything that is good, anything that is impactful must cost money. But most of the time, if you look at what is bringing to the table in terms of lives that are being saved on a daily basis, I'm happy you talked about driving through Onitsha. You can imagine how Onitsha used to be, especially when you talk about all those loading parks and how they are now. You know, you've seen everybody's seeing you, you know, and you know if you are driving in the night, even if it is 1 a.m. and you are driving under the street light, you notice that you feel so comfortable, don't even know. But immediately you get to the dark, you notice that it's, you know, you are driving in the night. So that's what this thing can do. And people are doing business, more IGR to the state and stuff. But like I said, of course, it's expensive. One of the major, challenge we had was the ability to supervise, especially the vendors that's providing all manner of services. The people that are putting diesel, the people that are putting them on. Of course, they're supposed to put it 6:30 in the evening and take it off 6:30 in the morning. So sometimes they try to cut corners, they don't put it up in time. Sometimes they switch it off before the right time. That's one of the reasons why the governor set up this facility monitoring committee. And they've been working very hard. If I open my phone now, there is a particular WhatsApp group. All the stakeholders, the Igwes, the PGs, the people that are doing business along the stretch that we have street lights around the state, that if there is any problem in any network, I will know. So if you tell me that the street light at Dunukofia is not working, I already know. Because it's a win-win. They are enjoying this thing. He opens his office in the night, he's not coming on. Before I even know it, he will call me. Then I'll call the person, who is the vendor that is, he'll call the vendor. So everybody, now you notice that a whole lot of people that have been cutting these corners, a whole lot of them are now coming to work. A whole lot of them are now working very hard because everybody is supervising everybody. So that's what we have done there. Coming to the question about sustainability and the long-term management of these facilities. Of course, most of them we are running them with generating sets. That's why, we are doing most of these power projects, the TCM projects. Our intention is over time, if we improve power supply and get supply to up to 20, 24 hours, 18 hours, we'll start connecting them to the grid. And of course, over time, like Governor has approved some, stretch to be done with solar, because I know a whole lot of people will be thinking, why is it that we didn't do much with solar? Don't forget that the first set of these street lights we have done a long time ago. By that time, solar has not evolved the way it is now. Okay? The integrated solar panel you have now that is very robust. You remember the time that they put battery on top of it and use something like zinc and cover it, and by the time it stayed there for 1 month, everything will, scatter. It's not even bright. So solar has evolved. The technology is quite solid now. I know that that's part of the way to go in the future, So it is a very massive project that's giving very good value to the state.
I had to reason at the possibility of going forward when we haven't done some groundwork, especially when it comes to power installations and infrastructure. I know that falls under the purview of the PHCN, and of course supervised by your ministry. So now I drive along the streets and sometimes I see high tension wires that's supposed to be up there, hanging so low. To what extent have we interfaced with the PHCN to see that this hazard does not become a reality, perhaps, falling on people and killing people?
And I talked about the big one, what we are doing with TCN. You find out that there are things you have to work in partnership with other people to do. So that's why we are giving EEDC that support by, giving out those transformers to assist them. And we are working with TCN to do the transmission stations I mentioned before. We are doing in Nnewi, Onitsha, Ifitedunu, Agule, Yumuchu, and Doka. That over time, we are going to link all these transmission infrastructures with that 132 kV line and provide massive power infrastructure in the state. Anywhere in the state will drop power. So these are the things, governor is doing everything to make sure that the right people that are supposed to provide these things are adequately, reached to do so. And that's why they are working. But of course, you know that power infrastructure is not something, that you do overnight. I went to Nnobi with the Commissioner for Local Government, Commissioner for Education that is actually from Nnobi, and a couple of people to appease to the people to allow these young people, to the right of way to do this transmission infrastructure. That's the same thing we are doing. There's no week we are not going to one community or the other. Our people don't play with land, and most of our lands are actually built up. But government is ready to pay compensation. But it's just for them to let them do that assessment and stuff. So there are challenges that has to do with installation of power infrastructure. So governor is doing everything, but most of the time this thing takes time, but we are happy and we are very optimistic that very soon, because this particular one I'm talking about, this TCN project, most of the materials are on ground. Most of the materials are on ground. It's just that once they are done with installation of all these towers and stuff, it will then be, putting in the materials. So once that is done, enough power will be available to the state to drive real estate, to drive industries, and to do a manner of things.
I was just wondering, because there seems to be so much focus on city and urban electrification. How much attention is your ministry paying to rural electrification?
The one from Otuacha Junction to Eziaglo to Enugu to Unando, they've never seen electricity. That was the first time, the place is being connected with electricity. It was such an emotional moment. There is another one that is going on in Umwez Anam and a lot of communities in Anambra West. I think electricity stopped at that Umwez Anam. So a whole lot of community in that West have never seen electricity. It's ongoing. And even the one that was done, the one I mentioned, that was from Oji River to Urumba North and South. Most of the communities that benefited there, that was the first time they saw electricity. Okay, so these are life-changing. Some communities from Abia that benefited from that particular project, we are so excited. They've never had electricity throughout the life of the community. So they had to, send delegation to the state government to appreciate that gesture.
But I want to ask, in this particular project, you notice that there are some local government that are left behind, particularly the young local governments. There's no local town from Amak to Omo to in fact, the entire Yamelon, no single project of that nature is existed. Currently, the youth of that area are agitating about this particular issue. Do you have any explanation to that? Thank you.
The way the project is structured, of course, it's contractor, finance. And most of the time, the ones that we are implemented, we are even done by the members of actually the community, that the project that is. I understand that when it comes to the way the government of Obiano do a lot of projects, sharing it per senatorial district. When it comes to the street lights, I know all the 3 senatorial districts, there's nowhere you go, you don't see street lights. But I know that it might not be, equally distributed like that. And the major reason is because of the way it is structured. Okay? But Daniel Malunda, you mentioned, I know that there is a solar project that governor just approved for them. I noticed that the major issue then was because of the loneliness of part of that stretch, you know. So the former commissioner made, you know, a very good appeal, you know, to have a solar for them, and it's being processed.
You mentioned Anam, and I know vividly that in Anambra West, there are no much water facility there. There is one contract that was awarded on December 18, 2018. It covers provision of water facilities for 7 communities in Anambra West. But there's nothing going on there. Please, I want you as a commissioner, when you go back to your ministry, look at it.
But you know, when I started, I said the whole lot of ministries that are doing water, I need to be sure that it was awarded by my ministry. Sometime in 2016, ESCO gave this directive that all the ministries that want to do anything relating to water must come to the Ministry of Public Utilities. But the whole lot of people that are still doing it on their own. And sometimes, you know, if you don't standardize these things, you know, sometimes you might not get what you want in terms of the standard and stuff. You know, but that one is a matter of another day. So I will check.
You know, last year we had several issues, cases of fire incidents in Anambra State. And I must commend the ministry and the fire service that it supervises for meeting those challenges head on. But I want to ask, what has been done since then, since we had those cases, repeated cases of fire incident, to equip the fire service more, to train the men, the personnel more, to make sure that such cases do not repeat? And then we are there inquiries into the frequency of those fire incidents to make sure that such a thing does not repeat itself in this state in the beginning.
The truth is the governor has been supporting Anambra State Fire Service greatly. But after that incident in Machanja, he went, you know, extra mile to do a lot of intervention. He increased their hazard allowance almost 100%. He ordered the immediate, you know, employment of 120 firemen. He provided them with 13 units of utility vehicle. Of course, he refurbished more than 15 units of fire trucks, bought another 5, brand new, some from Emerson, approved the renovation of their offices, approved for training. And like I said, he feels that if Anambra State Fire Service eventually becomes an agency, it might help them, you know, to be more efficient. And in addition to that, the governor tried to take the intervention even to the vulnerable places, like the interventions he did in all the markets. He did some water installation in Ochanja 1 and 2, main market, the Ose market, the marine market. What is the scope of this intervention? Provided a very large industrial borehole, very large water storage, did reticulation of almost 500 kilometers reticulation in all these markets, but the main market that is big, it did 1,000 reticulation. And the reason behind this is, you know, when it comes to fire, the most effective action is the action that happens within seconds or minutes that the fire started. So the most effective person is the person that is closest to that, you know, position. So what is the most effective approach? Provide those things that will help the security man that is at that spot to be doing something before this guy is come. So when you do this reticulation, you provide fire hose. Okay? The fire hose rail. So if there is fire, all the security men need to do is to, pick the hose well, open it, because the water is pressurized. You start to fight the fire, because don't forget that most of these markets are so tight, fire truck cannot even enter. So these people will start to fight the fire before this guy comes. So sometimes they will even quench it, there will be no need. So these are the things the government is doing. And eventually, if this greater Onitsha water scheme I told you about takes off, there is going to be some fetching points in a lot of places in Onitsha that these water tanks can refill and fight. So there is an integrated plan to deal with these things.
I know that certain public places are supposed to have a certain degree of firefighting equipment, even privately owned businesses. So, to what extent the fire service department under your ministry is following up, on monitoring to see that these public buildings have this equipment?
After the fire incident of Ajanda, I believe His Excellency, through your ministry, awarded some contracts of building a water borehole, or rather water hydrants, in all the major markets in the state. So I just want to know the level of work that have been done in all those other markets, except outside that of the markets.
The regularity of petrol tankers falling on strategic locations, everything seemed foreboding at a point. So it would be really, good to know if your ministry has taken a very critical look at, the pattern that we all observed during the last dry season, and what measures, beyond what you've already shared with us, you are, taking to forestall such possibilities, because as soon as this rainy season elapses, we will be back again to that same threat.
In terms of the interventions in the markets, which I've tried to explain into details, of course you know that we have more than 63 markets in Anambra. And there is COVID in town, COVID-19. Nobody knows that we are going to be battling COVID. We are now doing an assessment of almost 900 schools to provide a wash facility. And we have assessed 900 schools in the state. And we have assessed about 566 schools. And we are getting almost 3.something billion to do that. Why am I saying this? We cannot do all at the same time. That's why you have to be facing this thing. So we're still going to get to some other ones. So that these 5, we're almost at the completion stage. Issue of the rate of the incidents, which was very alarming at a particular point. We had to liaise with the Ministry of Transport during the time of that tanker stuff every day. And I wish Air Vice Marshal should be here. I know that they started to investigate that particular one that the driver drove out with the head. I don't know where they are on it. Because I know the governor, insisted that they must find out who the guy was and why should he run away with it and stuff like that. But I know the plan B, like what the governor told us. Make sure you guys are ready. Whenever they do it, even if there is, people that are doing it, will punch it. And you can agree with me that the fire service has always been doing that. Once, you see, before you know it, are dead. Before you know it, are dead. But don't forget, there's some place like Onitsha, it's a very densely populated area. Fire service is embarking on a very massive enlightenment. You notice a couple of times the fire chief, Martin, radio telling people about how to deal with their gas, how to deal with their switches, and these are the safety things you take for granted, but they can, cause that harm. When it comes to putting the necessary things, in the house, which is a very important question, by the way, which, of course, I told you guys that most of the time, I know in my house in Abuja, a small gadget, fire extinguisher, saved the house. You know, kitchen is always very vulnerable. Started from the kitchen. Luckily for me, my brother-in-law was just coming in, saw it, picked the fire extinguisher and put it and stopped it there. You can imagine if that fire extinguisher was not there. Something that is not worth up to 40,000 saved, investment of millions. So, what we are doing, the new thing we are doing, I'm trying to answer your question about, checking the fire, readiness of some of these houses and stuff. We are working with the Anambra State, Revenue Service. So it's going to be a win-win. There are some men that are going around as they are doing the revenue drive as related to fire. They're checking all those things. Very soon people will start seeing, a whole lot of radio, enlightenment and, adverts, relating to that. And we're going to see these people, because at the end of the day, IGR is very important to the state, So we are going to encourage people to have that, and before we give you a certificate. So you're going to see them around very soon.
When you made mention of taking power, electricity to communities, I made post on that and people started commenting. Somebody called Obiano from Anambra West. He said, since I was born, my community has never witnessed electricity from Adam.
West, right?
But recently, yes. Recently, the completion of the electrification by Anambra State government, just last week, we witnessed electricity.
At the beginning, I said that the reason for us being here for one-on-one interaction with the commissioner is to enrich us with the knowledge of what is going on in his ministry. Those we knew before now reinforce, and those we didn't know will come out. So when we disseminate this information to the public, is from the point of knowledge and understanding.
First of all, we want to thank you because last week at the end of a meeting like this, Emeka had called you. We were all on the meeting, in the meeting, and you're on the speakerphone. And immediately you accepted to grace us with your time. So we appreciate you for that. Like the MC has also pointed out, information is very vital to any government. No matter what you're doing, if people don't know that you're doing it, it seems you're doing nothing. And we also want to thank you for giving us not just an exclusive insight into what the Ministry of Public Utilities is doing, but also giving us a truthful insight about it. So we thank you so much for that.